The afternoon sun filtered through the large windows of the corner cafe, casting warm light across the polished wooden tables. Rebecca sat in her car across the street, gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. Her heart was doing that annoying thing where it felt like it was trying to escape her chest. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror one more time, smoothing down her burgundy blouse that she'd changed 3 times before leaving her apartment. This was it. Her first blind date in over 2 years. Her coworker Jennifer had been incredibly persistent about this. "He's perfect for you," she'd said for the 100th time just yesterday. "He's successful, smart, and ready for something serious." Rebecca had finally agreed, mostly to stop Jennifer from bringing it up during every lunch break. But now, sitting here watching people come and go from the cafe, she wondered if this was a terrible mistake. Rebecca took a deep breath and grabbed her purse. She'd promised herself she would try. After years of avoiding dating apps and declining setups, she decided it was time to put herself out there again. She was 28 years old, had a job she loved at the local library, a cozy apartment, and wonderful friends. The only thing missing was someone to share it all with. Maybe today would be different. Maybe this time someone would see past her size and recognize the person underneath. The bell above the cafe door chimed as she walked in. The smell of fresh coffee and baked goods immediately wrapped around her like a familiar hug. She scanned the room, looking for someone who matched Jennifer's description. Dark hair, blue shirt, probably on his phone. There were several people fitting that description, which didn't help her nerves at all. Then she spotted him. A man in a crisp blue button-down was sitting at a corner table, scrolling through his phone. He looked up briefly and their eyes met. Rebecca smiled and gave a small wave. She watched his expression carefully, looking for any sign of recognition or welcome. What she saw instead made her stomach drop. His eyes traveled down from her face to her body, taking in her curvy frame. His welcoming expression shifted almost instantly. The polite smile disappeared, replaced by something between disappointment and annoyance. It lasted only a second before he plastered on a fake smile, but Rebecca had seen it. She'd seen that look before, more times than she cared to remember. Her hands instinctively clutched her purse tighter as she walked toward the table. "Hi, you must be Dylan," she said, trying to keep her voice steady and cheerful. "I'm Rebecca. It's nice to finally meet you." Dylan stood up, but it felt more like an obligation than courtesy. "Yeah, hi," he said, barely making eye contact. He gestured to the chair across from him without pulling it out for her. "Have a seat." Rebecca sat down, placing her purse on the empty chair beside her. She tried to ignore the way he immediately went back to his phone, typing something quickly before setting it face down on the table. "This is a nice place," she offered, attempting to start a conversation. "Do you come here often?" "Sometimes," he replied, his tone flat. He finally looked up at her, but there was no warmth in his gaze. "So Jennifer said you work at the library?" "Yes, I'm actually the head of the children's section," Rebecca said, grateful for something to talk about. "It's wonderful. I get to organize reading programs and help kids discover books they love. Just last week we had this little boy who said he hated reading, and I found him this graphic novel about space explorers, and his whole face just lit up. It's moments like that." "That's cool," Dylan interrupted, glancing at his phone again. The screen had lit up with a notification. "Look, I have to be honest with you here." Rebecca's heart sank. She knew what was coming. She'd heard variations of this speech before. "Jennifer showed me your profile picture," Dylan continued, leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed. "The one where you're wearing that black dress at some wedding or whatever. You looked a lot different in that photo." Heat rushed to Rebecca's cheeks. That photo is from 6 months ago. I haven't changed that much." "Come on," Dylan said, his voice getting louder. A couple at a nearby table glanced over. "You've got to admit there's a pretty big difference between that picture and what I'm seeing here. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but I have certain standards, you know? I work out 5 days a week. I take care of myself. I expect my partner to do the same." Rebecca felt like she couldn't breathe. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too hot. Other people were definitely listening now. She could feel their eyes on her. "That photo wasn't edited or anything," she said quietly, fighting to keep her voice from shaking. "I'm the same person." "You're not, though," Dylan insisted, shaking his head. "I mean, I specifically told Jennifer I wanted to meet someone who's into fitness and healthy living. Someone who, takes care of their appearance. This is why I hate blind dates." People always misrepresent themselves. The words hit Rebecca like physical blows. She wanted to stand up and leave, to run out of this cafe and never look back. But somehow she couldn't make her legs move. It was like she was frozen in place, trapped in this horrible moment, while this man she'd known for all of 5 minutes picked apart her appearance in front of strangers. "I do take care of myself," Rebecca said, hating how small her voice sounded. "I walk every day, I eat well, I'm not a size 2 and I never will be. That doesn't mean— Look, let's just be real here." Dylan interrupted again, picking up his phone. "This isn't going to work out. I don't want to waste your time or mine. You seem nice enough, but physically, you're just not what I'm looking for. I need someone who inspires me to be better. Someone I can be proud to be seen with." Rebecca felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of him. She reached for her purse, ready to end this nightmare and salvage whatever dignity she had left. Around them, the cafe had grown quieter. The usual hum of conversation had dimmed. People were pretending not to listen while obviously listening to every word. "I can't believe Jennifer thought this would work," Dylan continued, apparently not done humiliating her. "I'm going to have a serious talk with her about wasting my time like this. I took off work early for this. Do you know how many meetings I had to reschedule?" Rebecca's hands trembled as she gripped her purse. This was worse than she'd imagined. At least with online dating, rejection happened from behind a screen. This was public humiliation, served up with his coffee in a cafe full of witnesses. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but no words came out. Just as she was gathering the strength to stand up and leave, she heard a chair scrape against the floor somewhere behind her. Footsteps approached their table. Rebecca looked up to see a man she hadn't noticed before standing beside them, his expression serious but calm. He was tall, with kind eyes and the slight stubble of someone who'd been too busy to shave that morning. He wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, and he was looking directly at Dylan. "Excuse me," the stranger said, his voice firm but polite. "I think you need to stop talking now." Dylan looked up, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "I'm sorry, do I know you? This is a private conversation. It stopped being private when you decided to insult this woman loud enough for half the cafe to hear," the stranger replied. And just like that, everything changed. Dylan stared up at the stranger with a mix of confusion and irritation. "Are you serious right now? Who do you think you are, interrupting my conversation?" The stranger didn't back down. His jaw was set, and his eyes remained steady on Dylan. "I'm someone who was trying to enjoy a quiet cup of coffee before I had to listen to you tear down another human being for the past 10 minutes. And I'm not the only one who thinks you need to stop." Rebecca looked around and realized he was right. Several other customers were nodding in agreement. An older woman at a nearby table was looking at Dylan with obvious disapproval. A young couple had stopped their conversation entirely to watch what was happening. The barista behind the counter had paused mid-order, her attention fixed on their table. Dylan's face reddened. "This is none of your business, man. Seriously, just walk away." "I would have," the stranger said calmly. "But you made it everyone's business when you decided to publicly humiliate someone who didn't do anything wrong except show up to meet you. That's not okay." "Oh, come on," Dylan scoffed, standing up now to face the stranger. They were about the same height, but where Dylan's posture was aggressive, the stranger remained composed. "I'm just being honest. Is that a crime now? I'm allowed to have preferences. I didn't sign up to go on a date with someone who clearly doesn't take care of themselves." Rebecca felt her face burning. She wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor and never come back. This was somehow getting worse, not better. "Having preferences is one thing," the stranger said, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel underneath. "Being cruel is something else entirely. You could have politely ended the date and left. Instead, you chose to insult her, to make her feel small, to question her worth as a person based solely on her appearance. That's not honesty. That's just being a jerk." A few people in the cafe actually clapped at that. Dylan looked around, seeming to realize for the first time that the room was not on his side. His confident demeanor started to crack. "Whatever, man. You don't know what you're talking about," Dylan muttered, but his voice had lost some of its conviction. He grabbed his phone and wallet from the table. "I don't have time for this. This whole thing was a waste anyway." "Then leave," the stranger said simply, stepping aside to give Dylan a clear path to the door. "But first, I think you owe this woman an apology." Dylan let out a harsh laugh. An apology for what? For being honest about what I'm looking for? That's ridiculous. He looked down at Rebecca, who was still sitting frozen in her chair. Look, no hard feelings, okay? I'm sure you'll find someone who's into your type. Just maybe be more upfront about it next time. Before Rebecca could respond, before the stranger could say another word, Dylan threw a $20 bill on the table and strode toward the exit. The bell above the door chimed as he left, and suddenly the cafe felt like it could breathe again. The tension that had been building released all at once. Rebecca sat there, still processing what had just happened. Her hands were shaking, and she realized tears were sliding down her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away, embarrassed that she was crying in front of all these people. The stranger pulled out the chair across from her, the one Dylan had just vacated. Is it okay if I sit down for a minute? He asked gently. I don't want to intrude, but I wanted to make sure you're all right. Rebecca nodded, not trusting her voice yet. The stranger sat down, and she noticed he had kind eyes, the sort that crinkled at the corners like he smiled often. He looked genuinely concerned, not pitying, which somehow made it easier to look at him. I'm really sorry you had to go through that, he said quietly. No one deserves to be treated that way, especially not someone who was kind enough to give a blind date a chance. Thank you, Rebecca managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. You didn't have to do that. Stand up for me, I mean. But thank you. I did have to, he said with a slight shake of his head. I couldn't just sit there and listen to that. My mom raised me better than that. He offered her a small, warm smile. I'm Nathan, by the way. Rebecca, she said, and found herself returning his smile despite everything. I'm Rebecca. It's nice to meet you, Rebecca. I just wish it was under better circumstances. Nathan glanced at the $20 bill Dylan had left on the table. That guy didn't even pay for anything. What a class act, Rebecca let out a small, watery laugh. It felt good to laugh, even just a little. Yeah, he was something special, wasn't he? The barista appeared at their table, carrying a fresh cup of coffee and a chocolate croissant. This is on the house, she said to Rebecca with a sympathetic smile. That guy was awful. You handled yourself with way more grace than he deserved. Thank you, Rebecca said, touched by the gesture. That's really kind. As the barista walked away, Nathan leaned forward slightly. Listen, I know this is probably the last thing you want after what just happened, but would you mind if I stayed and kept you company for a bit? No pressure at all. I just think you shouldn't have to sit here alone after that. Rebecca looked at him carefully, trying to gauge his intentions. But all she saw was genuine kindness. No pity, no hidden agenda, just a decent person who wanted to help. You really don't have to do that, she said. I'm sure you have better things to do than babysit a stranger who just had the world's worst blind date. Actually, I've got about an hour before I need to pick up my daughter from her friend's house, Nathan said. I came here specifically to have some quiet time and read this book I've been trying to finish for weeks. He pulled a worn paperback from his jacket pocket. But honestly, making sure you're okay is a much better use of my time. Something about the way he said it, so matter-of-fact and sincere, made Rebecca's remaining walls crumble. She'd been prepared to leave, to go home and cry into her pillow and maybe eat an entire pint of ice cream, while questioning every life choice she'd ever made. But sitting here with Nathan, with his gentle presence and kind eyes, she found she didn't want to be alone. Okay, she said softly. If you're sure you don't mind, I'd actually really appreciate the company. Nathan's smile widened. I'm absolutely sure. Besides, I'm curious what brings someone to a blind date at the corner cafe on a Thursday afternoon. That is, if you feel like talking about it. If not, we can talk about literally anything else. Rebecca took a sip of the coffee the barista had brought her. It was still hot, perfectly made, exactly what she needed. Honestly, my coworker has been bugging me about dating for months. She kept saying I needed to put myself out there, that the right person was waiting for me. I finally agreed just to get her to stop bringing it up during every lunch break. Let me guess, Nathan said with a knowing look. She promised you he was perfect, that you two would hit it off immediately, that she just had a feeling about this one? Yes, exactly that, Rebecca said, surprised. How did you know? Nathan chuckled. Because that's exactly what my sister keeps saying to me. She's been trying to set me up with someone for over a year now. Every few weeks it's a new person who's supposedly my perfect match. You haven't taken her up on it? Not yet, Nathan admitted. After my wife passed away, dating just felt impossible. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. My sister means well, but I don't think I'm ready for setups and awkward first dates. Though after seeing what you just went through, I'm definitely not ready. Rebecca felt a pang of sympathy. I'm so sorry about your wife, thank you. It's been 3 years and it's getting easier, but... He trailed off, then seemed to shake himself out of the melancholy. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this about me. We were talking about your terrible blind date. It's okay, Rebecca said and meant it. There was something refreshing about Nathan's openness, his willingness to be vulnerable. And honestly, I don't really want to talk about Dylan anymore. He's already taken up enough of my afternoon. Fair enough, Nathan agreed. He held up his book. Have you read this? It's about a guy who decides to walk across America and discovers all these amazing stories along the way. Rebecca's eyes lit up. I love that book. I actually recommended it to someone at the library just last week. And just like that, they fell into easy conversation, the disaster of the blind date fading into the background as two strangers discovered they had more in common than either of them expected. 2 hours passed like 20 minutes. Rebecca couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed this much. Nathan had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard in the best way. They'd moved from discussing books to sharing stories about their worst customer service experiences, to debating whether cereal was a soup, which somehow led to Nathan doing an impression of his daughter trying to explain quantum physics after watching a science documentary. She's 7, Nathan said, still chuckling, and she looked at me with complete seriousness and said, Dad, we might all just be dreams inside a cat's imagination. I didn't know whether to be proud or concerned. Rebecca nearly snorted her coffee. That's amazing. She sounds incredible. She is, Nathan said, and his whole face softened when he talked about his daughter. Her name's Lily. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Smart, funny, way too clever for her own good. She keeps me on my toes every single day. What's it like? Rebecca asked. Being a single parent? I mean, you don't have to answer if that's too personal. Nathan shook his head. No, it's fine, honestly. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. There are days when I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. Just last week, Lily came home crying because some kids at school were teasing her about not having a mom. I wanted to march into that school and give those kids a piece of my mind, but instead, I had to be the calm adult and help her process her feelings. I don't think I did a great job. I bet you did better than you think, Rebecca said gently. The fact that you care so much already makes you a great dad. Nathan smiled at that, but there was something sad in his eyes. I try, but sometimes I worry it's not enough, you know, that she needs more than just me. My sister keeps saying I should start dating again, that Lily needs to see me happy. But how do you even start? How do you let someone new into your life when you're still figuring out how to live without the person you lost? Rebecca was quiet for a moment. I don't know. But I think maybe you just take it one day at a time, one coffee at a time. She gestured to their empty cups. Like this. Nathan met her eyes and something shifted in the air between them. Yeah, he said softly. Like this. His phone buzzed on the table, breaking the moment. He glanced at it and sighed. That's my alarm. I need to go pick up Lily in 20 minutes. Rebecca felt a surprising stab of disappointment. Of course, I should probably get going too. They both stood up, gathering their things with the awkward energy of two people who didn't quite want to say goodbye, but weren't sure what came next. As they walked toward the exit, Nathan held the door open for her, and they stepped out into the late afternoon sunshine. So, Nathan said, turning to face her, I know this might be weird timing after everything that happened today, but would it be okay if I got your number? As friends, I mean. No pressure or anything. I just really enjoyed talking to you, and I'd like to do it again sometime. Rebecca felt warmth spread through her chest. I'd really like that. They exchanged numbers, and as Rebecca was putting her phone back in her purse, Nathan hesitated like he wanted to say something else. Listen, he finally said, I just want you to know that guy earlier. He was an idiot. Anyone who can't see how amazing you are doesn't deserve a second of your time. You're smart, funny, kind, and you have this way of making people feel comfortable just by being yourself. Don't let what he said make you doubt any of that. Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time they were good tears. Thank you, Nathan. That means more than you know. They hugged briefly, and then Nathan headed to his car while Rebecca walked to hers. As she drove home, she couldn't stop smiling. What had started as potentially the worst day of her year had somehow transformed into something unexpectedly wonderful. The next few weeks fell into an easy rhythm. Nathan texted her that same evening to make sure she'd gotten home safely. The conversation continued from there, casual at first but growing deeper as the days passed. They texted about their days, shared funny memes, recommended books and movies to each other. Rebecca found herself looking forward to his messages, smiling at her phone like a teenager whenever his name popped up. They met for coffee twice in the first week. Then it became a regular thing. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon when Nathan had a break from his teaching job and Rebecca had her lunch hour, the corner cafe became their spot. The staff started to recognize them, and the barista who'd given Rebecca the free coffee that first day would grin knowingly whenever they walked in together. "So, I have a question," Nathan said during their third week of coffee dates, "and feel free to say no, absolutely no pressure. But Lily has a soccer game this Saturday and I was wondering if maybe you'd want to come watch. I know meeting the kid is kind of a big step and we're just friends, but she's been asking about you." Rebecca's heart skipped. "She's been asking about me?" Nathan looked a bit sheepish. "I might have mentioned that I made a new friend, and Lily being Lily, she immediately wanted to know everything. What you looked like, what you did for work, if you liked animals, if you thought dragons were real." The interrogation was pretty intense. "What did you tell her?" Rebecca asked, curious. "The truth. That you work at the library, that you're really nice, and that you're my friend." She got very excited about the library part. "She wanted to know if you could get her any book in the world," Rebecca laughed. "I wish it worked that way, but I'd love to come to her game. I haven't been to a kid's soccer game in years." Saturday arrived bright and sunny. Rebecca spent an embarrassing amount of time picking out her outfit, changing 3 times before settling on jeans and a comfortable sweater. She kept telling herself this wasn't a date, that she was just watching a friend's daughter play soccer, but her nervous excitement suggested otherwise. The soccer field was chaotic in the best way. Kids in matching jerseys ran around warming up. Parents set up folding chairs on the sidelines, and the smell of fresh-cut grass filled the air. Rebecca spotted Nathan standing near the team bench talking to a tiny girl with dark braids and the biggest smile Rebecca had ever seen. "Rebecca," Nathan called out, waving her over. As she approached, the little girl looked up at her with curious brown eyes. "Lily, this is my friend Rebecca," Nathan said. "Rebecca, this is my daughter Lily." "Hi," Rebecca said, kneeling down to be at eye level with the girl. "Your dad tells me you're a really good soccer player." Lily shrugged, but she was clearly pleased. "I'm okay. I scored 2 goals last week." "Do you really work at the library?" "I do. Do you know where the books about space are?" "Because I'm learning about black holes and they're super cool and I want to read everything about them." Rebecca grinned. "I know exactly where those books are. In fact, I have a few recommendations if you're interested." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really? Can you write them down for me?" "Absolutely." As Lily ran off to join her team, Nathan looked at Rebecca with an expression she couldn't quite read. "She likes you," he said simply. "I like her too," Rebecca replied. "She's wonderful." They found a spot on the sidelines, and as the game started, Rebecca felt something settle in her chest. Sitting here with Nathan, cheering for Lily as she ran up and down the field with more enthusiasm than skill, felt right in a way she hadn't expected. Natural, easy, like pieces clicking into place. After the game, which Lily's team won by 1 goal, the 3 of them went out for ice cream. Lily talked nonstop about the game, about her friends, about the book she was reading, bouncing from topic to topic with the boundless energy of a 7-year-old. Rebecca listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at Lily's jokes. At one point, while Lily was distracted by trying to catch the cherry from her sundae with her spoon, Nathan leaned over to Rebecca. "Thank you for coming today," he said quietly. "This meant a lot. To both of us." Rebecca smiled at him and realized with startling clarity that somewhere along the way, her feelings had shifted. Nathan wasn't just a friend anymore. Somewhere between the coffee dates and the text messages and watching his face light up when he talked about his daughter, she'd fallen for him. The question was, did he feel the same way? The realization hit Rebecca like a wave, and suddenly she couldn't focus on her ice cream anymore. She was in love with Nathan. Actually in love. Not just enjoying his company or appreciating his kindness, but genuinely, deeply falling for him, and it terrified her. Over the next 2 weeks, everything felt different. Rebecca found herself overthinking every text message, wondering if she was being too friendly or not friendly enough. When they met for coffee, she caught herself staring at his hands, imagining what it would feel like to hold them. She watched the way he smiled when he talked about his students, the way he pushed his hair back when he was thinking, the gentle way he spoke to Lily on the phone when she called during their coffee dates. But the worst part was not knowing if he felt the same way. Nathan was affectionate in a friendly way, always kind and attentive. But was it more than friendship? Or was Rebecca just projecting her own feelings onto their relationship? "You're being ridiculous," her best friend Michelle said when Rebecca finally confessed everything over dinner one evening. "The man texts you good morning every single day. He introduced you to his daughter. He literally defended you from a jerk on your first meeting. Those aren't just friend things." "But what if I'm wrong?" Rebecca said, pushing her pasta around her plate. "What if I tell him how I feel and it ruins everything?" "I can't lose him, Michelle. And I can't lose Lily either. She's become so important to me." Michelle reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Babe, I've known you for 10 years. I've never seen you light up the way you do when you talk about him. And from everything you've told me, he feels the same way. Sometimes you just have to take the leap." But taking the leap felt impossible. Rebecca had spent so many years protecting herself, building walls around her heart after too many rejections and cruel comments about her weight. Dylan hadn't been the first person to make her feel unworthy, just the most recent. The idea of making herself vulnerable again, of risking that kind of hurt with someone she actually cared about, was paralyzing. Things came to a head on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Rebecca and Nathan were at their usual table at the corner cafe when Nathan's sister showed up unexpectedly. She was tall and energetic, with the same warm smile as her brother. "I had to meet the famous Rebecca," she said, sliding into the booth beside Nathan without waiting for an invitation. "I'm Claire, the annoying sister who won't stop meddling in his life." "Don't listen to her," Nathan said, but he was smiling. "She's actually the best sister anyone could ask for." "Annoying, yes, but the best." Claire ordered a coffee and immediately launched into stories about Nathan as a kid, much to his embarrassment and Rebecca's delight. But after about 20 minutes, Claire's phone rang. She glanced at it and stood up quickly. "That's the school. Lily's not feeling well." She looked at Nathan apologetically. "I know it's your planning period, but can you go get her? I'm on the other side of town at a meeting." "Of course," Nathan said, already grabbing his jacket. He turned to Rebecca with an apologetic look. "I'm so sorry. I have to go." "Don't apologize," Rebecca said. "Go take care of your daughter. I hope she feels better." Nathan hesitated, then leaned down and kissed Rebecca on the forehead before rushing out. It was quick, casual, probably something he did without thinking. But Rebecca sat there frozen, her hand touching the spot where his lips had been, her heart racing. "He's in love with you, you know," Claire said casually, sitting back down and taking a sip of her coffee like she hadn't just dropped a bomb. Rebecca's head snapped toward her. "What, my brother? He's completely in love with you." "Has been for weeks," Claire smiled. "I haven't seen him this happy since before my sister-in-law died." "You're good for him. Did he tell you that?" Rebecca asked, afraid to hope. "He doesn't have to. I know my brother. The way he talks about you, the way his whole face changes when he gets a text from you. He's been walking around like a lovesick puppy." Claire leaned forward. "But he's terrified of what?" "Of screwing it up. Of moving too fast and scaring you away. Of putting his heart out there and getting hurt again. Of what it means for Lily if things don't work out." Claire's expression grew more serious. Losing his wife almost destroyed him. It took him 2 years before he could even talk about her without breaking down. "You're the first person he's let get close since then. That's huge." Rebecca felt tears building up. "I don't want to hurt him. Or Lily. I care about them both so much. I know you do. I can see it. So can he, even if he's too scared to admit what it means." Claire finished her coffee and stood up. "Look, I'm not telling you what to do, but life's too short to play it safe all the time. Sometimes you have to take a risk on something that could be really, really good." After Claire left, Rebecca sat alone in the cafe for another hour, thinking about everything. She thought about that first day, when Nathan had stood up for her when no one else would. She thought about all their conversations, the easy laughter, the comfortable silences. She thought about Lily's bright smile and the way she'd hugged Rebecca goodbye after the soccer game. She thought about how, for the first time in years, she felt seen and valued for exactly who she was. Michelle was right. Claire was right. She had to take the leap. That evening, Rebecca texted Nathan to ask how Lily was feeling. He replied that she just had a mild stomachache and was already feeling better, currently teaching him a complicated card game she'd learned at school. They texted back and forth for a while, but Rebecca couldn't bring herself to say what she really wanted to say. Not over text. This deserved to be said face to face. The next morning, Rebecca woke up to her usual good morning text from Nathan, but this time there was something else. A voice message. With shaking hands, she pressed play. "Hey, Rebecca, it's me. Sorry for the voice message. I know it's weird, but I needed to tell you something and I kept chickening out via text." There was a pause, and she could hear him take a deep breath. "So here's the thing. I really value our friendship. You've become one of the most important people in my life over these past couple months, and Lily adores you, which means everything to me. But I have to be honest with you about something, and I'm terrified it's going to mess everything up." Rebecca's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "I have feelings for you," Nathan's voice continued. "Real feelings, more than friendship feelings. I think I've been falling for you since that first day at the cafe, but I was too scared to admit it. Too scared of what it would mean, too scared of getting hurt again, too scared of complicating things. But Claire came over last night and basically yelled at me for being an idiot, and she's right. I'm tired of being scared." There was another pause, longer this time. "I know this is probably a lot to throw at you first thing in the morning, and if you don't feel the same way, we can pretend this never happened and just stay friends. I mean, it'll be awkward for a while, but we'll get through it. But if there's any chance you might feel the same way, then I'd really like to take you on an actual date. Not a coffee meetup as friends, but a real date. Dinner, maybe, or whatever you want. I just want to spend time with you and not have to pretend that I'm not completely crazy about you." Rebecca could hear Lily's voice in the background saying something, and Nathan laughed. "Okay. Lily's yelling at me that my eggs are burning, so I have to go. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say. No pressure. Just think about it, okay? Talk to you later." The message ended. Rebecca sat in bed staring at her phone, a huge smile spreading across her face. Her hands were still shaking, but this time it was from joy, not fear. She didn't need time to think about it. She knew exactly what she wanted. She hit the call button. Nathan answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said, and she could hear the nervousness in his voice. "Did you get my message?" "I did," Rebecca said, and she couldn't keep the happiness out of her voice. And yes. Yes to all of it. The date, the feelings, everything. "I feel the same way, Nathan. I have for weeks." There was silence on the other end, and for a moment Rebecca worried the call had dropped. Then she heard him let out a breath that sounded like relief and joy all mixed together. "Really?" he asked, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Really," she confirmed. In the background, she heard Lily shout, "Did she say yes? Dad, did she say yes?" Nathan laughed. "Yes, she said yes. I knew it," Lily yelled, and Rebecca heard what sounded like the 7-year-old doing a victory dance. "So," Nathan said, "how about dinner tomorrow night? I'll get a babysitter for Lily and we can do this properly." "Tomorrow night sounds perfect," Rebecca said. As they said goodbye, Rebecca lay back on her bed, still smiling. She thought about Dylan and that horrible blind date that had started all of this. In a weird way, she was almost grateful for it. If he hadn't been such a jerk, Nathan never would have stepped in. They never would have met. She never would have found this unexpected, beautiful connection. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best ones. You just have to be brave enough to stay open to the possibility. Rebecca stood in front of her closet, trying on what felt like her entire wardrobe. This was different from getting ready for that blind date with Dylan. That day she'd been nervous about being judged. Tonight she was excited about being seen. There was a huge difference. She finally settled on a deep blue dress that made her feel confident and beautiful. Not because it hid anything, but because it made her feel like herself. As she looked in the mirror, she realized something had changed. She wasn't trying to make herself smaller or different. She was just trying to look her best for someone who already liked her exactly as she was. Nathan picked her up at 7, and the look on his face when she opened the door made every minute of getting ready worth it. "Wow," he said, and then laughed at himself. "Sorry, that was smooth. What I meant to say is you look absolutely beautiful." "You clean up pretty nice yourself," Rebecca said, taking in his dark gray suit. She'd only ever seen him in casual clothes before. Dinner was at a small Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place with dim lighting, candles on every table, and the smell of garlic and fresh bread filling the air. It should have been nerve-wracking, this official first date, but instead it felt natural. They'd already shared so much over coffee that the conversation flowed easily. "Okay, confession time," Nathan said as they waited for their food. "I was so nervous about tonight that I asked Lily what I should talk about. Do you know what she told me?" "What?" Rebecca asked, smiling. "She said I should tell you about the time I accidentally wore 2 different shoes to work and didn't notice until lunch." He shook his head. "My 7-year-old daughter thinks my embarrassing moments are my best quality." "She's not wrong," Rebecca teased. "I want to hear this story." As Nathan launched into the tale, complete with hand gestures and the reactions of his middle school students, Rebecca found herself thinking about how different this felt from any date she'd been on before. There was no pretending, no trying to be someone she wasn't, no walking on eggshells. It was just easy. "Right, your turn," Nathan said after they'd both stopped laughing. "Tell me something embarrassing about you." Rebecca thought for a moment. "Okay, so last month a little boy at the library asked me if I was a princess. I said no, and he looked really disappointed. So I told him I was actually a secret agent who works undercover at the library. He got so excited that he told all his friends. Now every time he comes in, he whispers his book requests to me like they're classified information. His mom thinks it's hilarious." "That's not embarrassing, that's adorable," Nathan said. "You're really good with kids, you know. Lily hasn't stopped talking about you since the soccer game. She asked me yesterday if you could come to her school's fall festival next week." Rebecca felt warmth spread through her chest. "I'd love to." "Yeah?" Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time they'd held hands, and his was warm and steady. "I'm really glad this is happening. Us, I mean. I was starting to think I'd never feel this way about anyone again." "I know what you mean," Rebecca said softly. "After so many years of feeling invisible or not good enough, I'd kind of given up. Not consciously, but I just stopped believing someone could see me this way." Nathan squeezed her hand. "That guy at the cafe, Dylan, he was an idiot, but I'm almost grateful to him, in a weird way. If he hadn't been such a jerk, I never would have talked to you. We wouldn't be here right now." "That's exactly what I was thinking this morning," Rebecca said. "Isn't it strange how the worst moments can lead to the best ones?" They talked through dinner and dessert, and when the restaurant started closing, they realized they'd been there for almost 3 hours. Nathan drove her home, and they sat in his car outside her apartment building, neither quite ready for the night to end. "Can I see you tomorrow?" Nathan asked. "I know it's soon, but Lily wants to show you her science project. Something about volcanoes and baking soda. I'm not entirely sure I understand it, but she's very excited." "I'd love that," Rebecca said. Nathan walked her to her door, and when they said goodnight, he kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and perfect, and Rebecca felt like she was floating as she walked into her apartment. The next 6 months passed like a dream. Rebecca became a regular fixture in Nathan and Lily's life. She attended every soccer game, helped with homework, and joined them for their Sunday morning pancake tradition. Lily started calling her Miss Rebecca at first, then just Rebecca, and then one day, casually, Becca, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Nathan and Rebecca's relationship grew deeper with each passing week. They had their first fight about something silly, worked through it, and came out stronger. They said "I love you" for the first time on a random Tuesday while washing dishes together. Nathan met Rebecca's parents, who loved him immediately. Rebecca learned about Nathan's late wife, saw her pictures around the house, and understood that loving Nathan meant honoring that part of his past. The turning point came on a warm spring evening. They were all at the park, Rebecca reading on a blanket while Nathan pushed Lily on the swings. A woman approached Nathan, someone he clearly knew from the polite but awkward way he greeted her. Rebecca couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw the woman glance over at her, then back at Nathan. The woman said something, and Nathan's expression hardened. He said something brief, picked up Lily, and walked back to Rebecca. "Who was that?" Rebecca asked. "Dylan's sister," Nathan said, sitting down beside her. "She wanted to tell me that Dylan's been feeling terrible about what happened, that he's a different person now and wants to apologize to you." Rebecca felt her stomach drop. "What did you say?" "I told her that what Dylan did was unforgivable and that you don't owe him anything. Not your time, not your forgiveness, nothing." Nathan looked at her seriously. But it's your choice. If you want to hear what he has to say, I'll support you. If you never want to think about him again, I'll support that too. Rebecca thought about it for a moment, then shook her head. I don't need his apology. That part of my life is over. I'm not that person anymore. The one who thought she needed validation from people who didn't deserve her. I know who I am now. I know what I'm worth. Nathan smiled and pulled her close. Yeah, you do. That night, after Lily was in bed, Nathan and Rebecca sat on the porch watching the stars come out. Nathan was quiet, fidgeting with something in his pocket. I've been thinking about something, he finally said, and I want to run it by you before I do anything. Okay, Rebecca said, curious. I want to sell the house, Nathan said. Not immediately, but eventually. This place has a lot of memories, and they're good memories, but they're also sad ones. I think Lily and I need a fresh start. Somewhere that can be ours, all of ours, without ghosts in every corner. Rebecca understood what he was really saying, what he was asking without asking. That sounds like a good idea. Would you want to help us look? Nathan asked. For a new place? I know we haven't talked about moving in together or anything like that, but I wanted you to know that's where my head is. Not right now, but someday. I want this to be forever, Rebecca. You and me and Lily, a real family. Rebecca felt tears in her eyes. I want that too. A year later, they stood in the corner cafe, the place where everything had started. The same cafe, the same table even, but everything was different now. Rebecca wore a simple white dress. Nathan wore a suit. Lily was in a pale yellow dress holding a basket of flower petals. They'd decided on a small ceremony, just close friends and family. The cafe had closed for the afternoon just for them. The barista who'd given Rebecca that free coffee on the worst day of her life was now tearing up as she watched the ceremony. As Nathan slipped the ring on Rebecca's finger, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. The pain, the fear, the courage it took to stay open to love even after being hurt. She thought about how one terrible moment had somehow led to the greatest happiness she'd ever known. I love you, Nathan whispered as they kissed, and the small group erupted in applause. Lily tugged on Rebecca's dress. Does this mean you're my mom now? Rebecca knelt down, her heart overflowing. If you want me to be. I do, Lily said simply and hugged her. Later, as they cut the cake and took pictures and celebrated with the people they loved, Rebecca caught sight of her reflection in the cafe window. She saw a woman who was happy, loved, and whole. A woman who'd learned that the right person doesn't just accept you as you are, they celebrate you for it. She saw herself clearly for the first time in her life, and she finally understood that she'd been beautiful all along. She just needed someone to help her see it. Not someone to make her beautiful, but someone to reflect back the beauty that had always been there. Sometimes love finds you when you least expect it, in the moments when you think you're at your lowest. Sometimes it takes a cruel person to lead you to a kind one. And sometimes the worst blind date of your life becomes the beginning of the best love story you could imagine. Rebecca had learned that being seen, truly seen, by the right person, changes everything. And as she looked at her new family, at the life they were building together, she knew that every moment of pain had been worth it to get here. This was her happy ending, but really it was just the beginning.